is the desk on Global Television.
Nigeria. Come join Anthony Momodu on television's most compelling and facts-finding talk live show.
We are definitely because
that this country gets it right.
Who are these bandits?
It's the Desk on Global Television, where we analyze and dissect storming issues and commentaries in the world's biggest black nation, Nigeria.
Who is being held accountable for this money?
The eyes have it.
We stay and decide policies and reforms on the decks. Tune in Mondays to Fridays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Global Television. Let's stay on the deck.
All right, welcome. It's the weekend edition of the program, The Desk on Global Television. We'll be looking at issues making the rounds across the different sector of our national life. My name is Anthony Momodu, welcoming you to The Desk, the final edition for the week. And hopefully I'll be getting my guest to join me via Zoom in the person of Kester Elebe-Sunu, who is a lawyer and also an activist, to help us look at some of the trending stories making the rounds. Let's just begin by just letting you know that we'll be talking about Nigeria's, the fact that FEC has approved the 47.8 trillion naira Nigeria's budget for 2025. The story says the Federal Executive Council approved the proposed national budget of 47.9 trillion naira for the 2025 fiscal year. Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, disclosed this while briefing State House journalists after the FEC meeting presided over by President Bola Tinubu. This is part of the medium-term expenditure framework for 2025 to 2027 and is in line with the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007. Accordingly, the FEC approved its submission to the National Assembly as required by the 2007 Fiscal Responsibility Act. The framework projected a gross domestic product growth rate of 4.6%, a crude oil price of $75 and an oil production of 2.06 million barrels per day. So that's what we're expecting in the year 2025. The budget already earmarked for Nigeria for 2025, and it at the point of 47.9 trillion naira for the 2025 fiscal year. All right, that's one of the talking points we'll be looking at there. And just as we give you also the fact that there's a story concerning the new disaster relief fund. That's another issue we'll be looking at on today's edition. The Vice President, talking about Kashim Shettima, explained that the fund would provide immediate assistance to disaster victims nationwide. Vice President Kashim Shettima on Thursday announced the President Bola Tinubu has approved the establishment of a new disaster relief fund to strengthen Nigeria's humanitarian response system. The big question is who is going to be handling this fund, especially when we know we have the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry, and also we have NEMA and other agencies already put in place to assist when it comes to disaster management. All right, so we'll be looking at that issue closely. We also have other stories that we'll be looking at on today's edition of the program, The Desk. And hopefully we'll be joined via Zoom. Also, we'll be looking at the Edo elections. 3 candidates stepped down for Governor Ayedatiwa ahead of Saturday's governorship poll in Ondo State. 3 Guba candidates have stepped down for the candidate of the ruling All Progressive Congress. Was it expected, and what is the implication of this stepping down? is what we'll be looking at on today's edition. My guest on the program is Kester Elebe Sunu, who is a lawyer and also an activist, hoping that he has joined us. Let's get across to Kester. Kester, are you there? All right, we'll go for a very quick break. My producer says let's go for a quick break. When we return from the break, we'll be looking at all these issues that I've highlighted and others, especially as we look at the Ondo elections that will be kickstarting tomorrow, and all hands on deck to ensure that we have a successful Guber polls in Ondo State, and not forgetting other issues that will be talked about concerning Edo State, where the governor has frozen all state-owned bank accounts. That's coming from Edo State. The governor, Senator Monday Okpeholo, has ordered the immediate freezing of all state-owned accounts in commercial banks until further notice. That's the story we're getting from Edo State. So these and other stories is what we'll be looking at after this break. Please stay with us. Is the desk on Global Television?
Nigeria. Come join Anthony Momodu on television's most compelling and facts-finding talk live show.
We are the Palestinians, we are the Canaan, because
That this country gets it right.
Who are these bandits?
It's the Dex on Global Television, where we analyze and dissect storming issues and commentaries in the world's biggest black nation, Nigeria.
Who is being held accountable for this money?
The eyes have it.
We stay and decide policies and reforms on the Dex. Tune in Mondays to Fridays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Global Television. Let's stay on the Dex.
Is the desk on Global Television?
Nigeria. Come join Anthony Momodu on television's most compelling and facts-finding talk live show.
we are the Palestinians, we are the Canaan, because
That this country gets it right.
Who are these bandits?
It's the Dex on Global Television, where we analyze and dissect storming issues and commentaries in the world's biggest black nation, Nigeria.
Who is being held accountable for this money?
The eyes have it.
We stay and decide policies and reforms on the Dex. Tune in Mondays to Fridays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Global Television. Let's stay on the Dex.
Is the desk on Global Television.
Nigeria. Come join Anthony Momodu on television's most compelling and facts-finding talk live show.
We are the
Can we
Palestinians.
not
We are
subject
the
them?
Canaan because
That this country gets it right.
Who are these bandits?
It's the Dex on Global Television, where we analyze and dissect storming issues and commentaries in the world's biggest black nation, Nigeria.
Who is being held accountable for this money?
The eyes have it.
We stay and decide policies and reforms on the Dex. Tune in Mondays to Fridays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Global Television. Let's stay on the Dex.
Welcome back from the break. Is still the desk, and it's now time for us to hit that discuss button where we'll begin to take issues as they flow out. And I told you my guest will be joining us via Zoom. He is a lawyer and activist in the person of Barrister Kester Elebesunu, who is joining us via Zoom to help us look at these issues. First of all, we're beginning from the issue of the 2025 budget, where the Federal Executive Council has approved a proposed 47.9 trillion naira for the 2025 fiscal year. That's where we're kickstarting our discussions from this evening. Barrister Kester Elebesunu, thank you very much for joining us on the desk.
Thank you, Mr. Tony. How are you today?
We're doing great. All right, let's just begin our conversation from something that concerns our national life, which has to do with Nigeria's 2025 budget. And we're being told that the Federal Executive Council has approved a national budget of 47.9 trillion naira for the 2025 fiscal year. The Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, disclosed this while briefing journalists after the FEC meeting presided over by President Bola Tinubu. My question to you is the fact that we know that this is a medium-term expenditure framework for 2025 to 2027 in line with the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007. Accordingly, the FEC approved the submission to the National Assembly as required by the 2007 Fiscal Responsibility Act framework. There's always this issue of late submission of the budget, which makes it difficult for lawmakers to probe into the budget properly and for them to do a detailed work. Do you think this is kind of deliberate? It was said that the president might present that today, but obviously we've not heard much from that.
So if I understand you correctly, are you saying that the late presentation, are you asking if the late presentation is deliberate? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, that most times we have this delayed presentation of the budget. And also, I want you to also look at the fact that this time around for 2025, the amount is quite massive. We're looking at as much as 47.9 trillion. Are you excited with this amount and also the issue of this delay in presentation?
Well, really and truly, I doubt that the amount is that huge, having regards to the exchange rate of our currency, the devaluation of the naira. So I don't think that it is something that is hugely different from what we've had in previous years, because the cost of living has arisen. So therefore, if you want to benchmark it against the cost of living of previous years and the GDP and all those other indices that economists use, is not that much. But with regards to the seemingly late presentation of the budget, for me, that is not really an issue because we are still within time, as it were. We're talking about 2025 budget, and so this is November. So if the budget is presented within the next 1 or 2 weeks, the National Assembly doesn't need too much, time to look at it and, to pass it. For me, these are not really the issues. The issues for me regarding the budget, which really is a guide, for governmental expenditure, is about budget implementation and fiscal responsibility of the various arms of government. In a situation where we look at the huge expenditures, the huge recurrent expenditures of the government, which as time goes on should reduce, you keep seeing that increase. And then you have little or nothing left for capital projects and other projects that will, that citizens will derive immediate value from. So those are really my concerns regarding the budget. Thank you.
Looking at the benchmark for crude, it's been put at $75, and the oil production also being, estimated for 2.06 million barrels per day. First of all, the $75 per. Do you think that's fair enough, and do you expect Nigeria to take advantage of it if that amount, we get that amount in terms of the dollar? Then 2.06 million barrels. Just this week, the World Bank and other institutions said, OPEC specifically said Nigeria was producing 1.3 million barrels per day, as against Nigeria federal government's claim of 1.8 million barrels per day. Why do you think there's this disparity, this seemingly insincerity when it comes to oil production, the oil and gas sector in the country?
Right. So it boils down to the sincerity of the regulatory agencies. And then, of course, this thing called corruption, which is the bane of our Nigerian economy, Nigerian society. Assuming without conceding that the relevant regulatory authorities are doing their jobs, diligently and responsibly, the issue of getting up to 2 million barrels per day would not be a challenge. But you see, with the menace of oil theft that has been dodging our petroleum industry, you see that a lot of oil is being diverted illegally and all that. So at the end of the day, what is reportedly produced is hugely below what is actually produced. So these are the issues. So I mean, we have the PIB. It is our hope that the petroleum industry bill, which recently came into being, would address these issues. But we're yet to see the value or the results of all that. So really, if we have a sanitized oil industry, I don't think oil production of 2.6 million barrels per day would be out of place. I think is something that we can actually achieve.
Let's move to the next talking point. We're looking at a new disaster relief fund. That's where we're heading to, where the Vice President explained that the fund would provide immediate assistance to disaster victims nationwide. The Vice President, Kashim Shettima, also did announce that President Bola Tinubu approved the establishment of a new disaster relief fund to strengthen Nigeria's humanitarian response system. Are you excited about this new establishment of relief fund? Some say it's another avenue for the humanitarian sector for funds to be diverted again, because we've seen several times we've got NEMA as an agency and other agencies, and they feel like this is technically another duplication of the same agency.
Well, the idea is that this disaster relief fund should is actually a localized framework to empower local actors and leverage local resources to address our growing humanitarian needs. That is the idea. But as it were, the Nigerian factor comes to play. What is the monitoring and evaluation protocols? What are the monitoring and evaluation protocols put in place to ensure that this relief funds actually gets to the ideal beneficiaries, that those who it is meant for? We've had a lot of ugly incidences where, for example, the last government, where the humanitarian minister at that time claimed to have, given all sorts of relief and humanitarian aid to unknown persons, nameless people who we could not identify, using a suspicious registry. So at the end of the day, my question is, I would ask, who are the victims? Have the victims been identified? What measures are in place to ensure that this relief fund or these relief measures will actually get to the victims who deserve it? So those are the issues. So if measures are put in place to ensure that these relief funds are actually administered as it ought to be, then I'm sure it's a welcome development.
The Vice President did also mention the issue of climate change and the global economic crisis, which he said has deepened the nation's complex humanitarian situation. Do you think there's need to separate the global climate change issues and economic environmental issues from this relief fund?
Well, these are diverse issues, even though they are related to an extent, because of course the current global challenges is creating resulting in natural disasters and causing all sorts of communities to become stranded. So I think, as it were, these are issues that need to be streamlined and actually addressed strictly. So the issue of global climate change, and as a result, I'm looking at it from the Nigerian angle, looking at it from the Borno state and all the northeast and northwestern states that are affected. We need to actually streamline the processes and the measures that government has to put in place. For example, I'm sure I've heard that the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, has created or developed some funding, that which it will administer through some Nigerian-led organizations, in a move to ensure that aid operations in Nigeria are actually ingeniously controlled. So these are measures that have been put in place by non-state actors, as it were. And I think government can actually complement these measures with not just the relief fund, with other available financial stopgaps to ensure that victims of climate change will be able to, have some succor, as it were. So the relief fund, right, is on its own. Then the measures that the government has put in place, apart from financing, to ensure that victims of climate change will be able to meet up or will be able to ameliorate the challenges that they face as a result of climate change, need to also be streamlined and addressed properly.
Okay, before we leave this talking point, don't you think this is going to put agencies like NEMA and also the humanitarian ministry in collusion course in terms of which of these agencies or ministry or where do they access funds to to give to victims of flood and other related natural disasters? Don't you think there's going to be a collusion, conflict of interest somewhere along the line, especially when it has to do with disbursement of funds and relief materials?
For me, the more the merrier. The more agencies or organizations working towards the relief of indigent Nigerians who are in need of such relief, if their goals are similar, if their goal is to actually come to the aid of Nigerians who are challenged with regards to humanitarian aid, intergovernmental rivalry should not arise. That is my take, right? Because government has a lot of on paper. There's a lot of measures, a lot of interventions that each of these agencies you've mentioned can spearhead, can use. So it's not restricted to just one agency. So I don't think there's a duplication or duplicity in their terms of reference. So the more the merrier. If they all work together to complement each other's efforts, I think the beneficiaries at the end of the day will be better off for it.
Let's go to Ondo State. Of course, tomorrow is the D-Day in Ondo State, and very interesting things happen in Nigerian politics. We're being told that ahead of Saturday's governorship poll in Ondo State, 3 Guba candidates have stepped down for the candidate of the ruling All Progressive Congress, talking about Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa. The Chief Press Secretary to the Governor, Prince Ebenezer Adeniran, confirmed this. He said that Dr. Ajibola Falaye and Honorable General Atta Oko and Olaide Ibrahim of the Accord Party and the National Rescue Movement and the African Democratic Congress have dropped their ambition. The spokesperson to Aiyedatiwa said the endorsement came when the 3 candidates paid a solidarity visit to the governor. Speaking on behalf of the candidate, Dr. Falaye hinged their decision on the back that the governor on his commitment to public service, track record, and outstanding performance in office. Do you see this as sincerity of purpose or just a game plan that has been agreed? Why wait? Why, go through the campaign hassles, spend funds, and just the eve of the elections, you decide to throw in the towel?
Well, this is Nigerian politics. Unfortunately, these are the things you see in Nigerian politics. It's nothing strange. It's not a surprise that the power of incumbency has come to play. The challenge with our nascent democracy is that when you are contesting from a position of power, position of authority, it's easier to influence outcomes, right? So I mean, barring any unforeseen circumstances, I think that the incumbent governor has the advantage, as it were. So it's not a surprise that these other people who have recognized the Herculean task they would have to undergo to actually wrest power from the incumbent, have decided to cut their losses and say, "Hey, come on, this is something we cannot win. So if you can't beat them, you join them." So it's not a surprise, So for me, I think that it's about time that the electorate, I would always say, that the electorate should hold the governors or the administrators accountable. After all said and done, when this election comes and goes, how do we measure or how do we actually ensure that the dividends of democracy cascade down to the electorate? That is really my concern. So whether people throw in the hat at the eve of the election, I'm not concerned. They are politicians. They know what they are doing. It's a horse trading thing. So for me, the interest of the electorate is more of my concern.
Still talking Ondo elections, but the next talking point has to do with Labour Party, where the Labour Party denies disqualification of candidates. Looking at it, that ahead of the Guba elections, the Labour Party has urged Nigerians, particularly the electorate, to disregard a court judgment purportedly disqualifying its candidate, Olushola Ebiseni, from the race. Recall that the Abuja division of the appeal court on Wednesday disqualified the candidate as the Labour Party candidate for the upcoming election. The 3-member panel of justices, in a unanimous decision led by Justice Haman Baka and delivered by Justice Adebukola, held that the appeal brought by the Labour Party against Chief Olushola and 2 others is allowed. This is where it's very interesting to have you, who you're also a lawyer. Do you think the judiciary has constantly put itself in a bad light, where just the eve to the elections is where these rulings are coming up, And why is it that the judiciary is always giving rulings that are seeming controversial?
Well, it's unfortunate that there have been a lot of controversial cases, that has not given the judiciary the kind of positive image that it ought to have. As a lawyer, before I make reference or x-ray any judgment, I would have to see the judgment, understand the facts, and then I can make an informed opinion about that judgment. There are rules of court. There are procedural rules of court. So no court will just wake up overnight and give a judgment or give a ruling, And so therefore, we need to, before you make any hasty generalizations or conclusions, you will need to understand what the facts are, right? Ordinarily, the rule of law still subsists in Nigeria, as difficult as it is for some of us to accept. In a case, one of the parties, will definitely be aggrieved because the other party, of course, has gotten his way. But that other party doesn't just get its way arbitrarily. It must have marshaled out the proper evidence and arguments that would warrant the court to find or to give a judgment in its favor. So if the Court of Appeal, in its wisdom, gave a judgment disqualifying a particular candidate in an election, in spite of the fact that the election is around the corner or tomorrow, as it were, it doesn't automatically mean that the judgment, was suborn, or the judgment, the fact that the Labour Party in itself, they are discrediting the judgment. The recourse to, if they have respect for the rule of law, the only thing they could do is to appeal the judgment, right? At the Supreme Court, there's still another level they can go to. So for it to have gone to the Court of Appeal, there was a court of first instance. What happened at the court of first instance? What are the facts? So I would not just hastily believe that there's something untoward until and unless I understand the facts, what happened at the first level, what the judgment was at the court of first instance, what the facts are even at the Court of Appeal, and the fact that justice is seldom denied in the court of law. The only thing that with our judicial system is that due to the administrative processes and procedures and the caseload of some courts, justice can be delayed at times, but justice is seldom denied, at least in the judicial system.
Okay, I'll urge you to rejoin us again on Zoom so that we can continue the conversation. We're going for a very quick break. Kindly just rejoin us in the next 2 minutes so that we can restart our conversation. All right, let's go for a quick break. When we return from the break, we'll be taking you to Edo State, where the governor, Okpeholo, has frozen all state accounts. These and other big stories after this break. Stay with us. Are there is the desk on Global Television?
Nigeria. Come join Anthony Momadou on television's most compelling and facts-finding talk live show.
We are the Palestinians.
Can we
are the Canaan because
That this country gets it right.
Who are these bandits?
It's the Dex on Global Television, where we analyze and dissect storming issues and commentaries in the world's biggest black nation, Nigeria.
Who is being held accountable for this money?
The eyes have it.
We stay and decide policies and reforms on the Dex. Tune in Mondays to Fridays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Global Television. Let's stay on the desk.
Is the desk on Global Television?
Nigeria. Come join Anthony Mamadou on television's most compelling and facts-finding talk live show.
We are definitely
Can we not say both of them?
because
That this country gets it right.
Who are these bandits?
It's the Dex on Global Television, where we analyze and dissect storming issues and commentaries in the world's biggest black nation, Nigeria.
Who is being held accountable for this money?
The eyes have it.
We stay and decide policies and reforms on the Dex. Tune in Mondays to Fridays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Global Television. Let's stay on the Dex.
Welcome back from the break. That's what you get on a live program, and that's giving signals to my producer to get the issues all started. Let's rejoin Kester Elebe Sunu, who is a lawyer and an activist, to continue our discussion. Now we're taking you to Edo State. Barrister Kester, thank you for rejoining us on the desk.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tony.
All right, I'm taking you back home. I'm taking you back to Edo State, where your governor, talking about Monday Okpeholo, has ordered the immediate freezing of all state-owned accounts in commercial banks until further notice. The governor also revised the Ministry of Roads and Bridges to the initial Ministry of Works. A statement by Fred Itwa, the Chief Press Secretary to the governor, made available to newsmen. The Edo State Governor Monday has ordered immediate freezing. Let's look at what do you think it's likely to be the implication of this, especially with Okpeholo, who warned that anyone, including heads of MDAs and civil servants who flouted the order, would be severely punished. According to him, all bank accounts in all commercial banks have been frozen. Commercial banks must comply with the order and ensure that not a dime is taken out of the coffers of the government until further notice. Do you think, based on agreement, talking corporate matters now, where governments and corporate bodies have reached an agreement, or companies, and certain amounts or wages or funds are supposed to be released on a monthly basis, would this affect such deals and businesses? And can a company or agency or body sue the government for breaching already established contracts with the former government?
Well, thank you so much, Tony. The reality is that this is one of the things that most governors who take over newly go through. That is so as to enable them to take charge of the financial affairs of the state. So it doesn't come as a surprise. More so, there were some allegations. Allegations were right a few days ago or weeks ago that the previous administration was making massive withdrawals and diverting funds. It was an allegation. So therefore, I'm not surprised that the new governor, Monday Okpeholo, coming into power now, I would definitely take these measures to ensure that no bite to be given to such allegations, to ensure that the transition process will not be an avenue for some unscrupulous persons to fraudulently divert funds belonging to the state. So in any case, the freeze order would not be one that will last forever. I'm sure once the governor fully acclimatizes himself with the finances of the state and knows what is in and what is out, I'm sure there will be countermeasures or there will be counter orders given to ensure that the finances of the state begin to flow seamlessly, and then things will get back to order. So it's not a surprise. I'm sure those who are adversely affected would know this and then would not be alarmed, because by the time, I'm sure definitely in a few days, a matter of days or hours, there will be measures put in place to ensure that all those who are adversely affected will have some form of respite.
Legally speaking, is it allowed, especially if the previous government had agreement or contract or MOUs with other organizations? How does it affect it?
Yes. You said the previous government. So
yes. But so government is continuum.
Well, with regards to finances, this government is not necessarily automatically bound by arrangements, agreements, or contracts entered by the previous government. The law allows them to have another look at it and to know whether or not to continue with such arrangements. Every contract has a termination clause, has a divestment clause, so I mean it's not strange. There are grounds upon which contracts are terminated, arrangements are terminated. So there's nothing stopping this government from making such orders.
On to the health sector, a very quick one, just to get your view on it before we go into other talking points. The fact we've got some very disturbing statistics in the health sector, where it's been said that the recent report that over 684,000 Nigerians die from non-communicable diseases. The NCD's annual reports a source of concern. Non-communicable disease are diseases that are not contagious. Most Nigerians have been battling with communicable or infectious diseases like cholera, human immune virus, HIV, tuberculosis, among others. Such diseases have, however, attracted public attention as they are always in the news, but many do not pay attention to the non-communicable diseases. However, the staggering number of casualties of non-communicable diseases have brought to the front burner the lead strategies and the need for Nigeria's health sector to be properly be up to date. Just looking at the numbers, I know you're not a health professional, but looking at the numbers, how disturbing is it that as much as 600,000 plus Nigerians are dying from non-communicable diseases?
As an analyst, it's something that one has become aware of, because statistics has revealed that around 48 million Nigerians are not physically active enough, and then coupled with the global trend of poor lifestyle choices, is not only in Nigerian things, it's a global thing. A lot of people consume poor diets, excessive alcohol usage and tobacco usage and all these things, and lack of exercise. So these things are the main causes of non-communicable diseases, like what I like to call lifestyle diseases, like high blood pressure and all these other things. So it's a source of concern. It's something that is worrisome, and I think it has actually given our health officials a lot of work to do. They need to be able to enlighten and educate, carry out drastic orientation campaigns. So talking about the NCDC and the Ministry of Health and all the likes, and now their related agencies, they have a lot of work to do. So I hope they go about doing this work so that Nigerians can become aware of the causes and actual preventive measures that they can take to ensure that there's a reduction in these statistics.
Point has to do with the Lakurawa group, where Gumi and Shettima differ. We're looking at the talking point about the reported emergence of the new terrorist group in the northwest states of Sokoto and Kebbi, known as the Lakurawa, as worsened the insecurity in Nigeria, although the operation of the group just became public knowledge. is land that they were first discovered in 2018, 2016, 2017, 2018, when it commenced operations in Gongono Forest, talking about the Tangaza local government area of Sokoto State. The jihadist group became more daring a few days ago with an attack on the Mera community in Ugi local government area of Kebbi State, leading to the death of about 17 people. The new group, which is linked with ISIS and operates in the Sahel, has imposed taxes and levies on communities in Sokoto State. They are also set up bases which have affected the local government areas while moving from community. The issue here is the conversation. We know that the director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Buba, did say there's no cause for alarm. But the fact that we've got Sheikh Gumi, who is a frontline and a controversial Islamic scholar and preacher, said that the fallout among headers led to the emergence of the La Kurawa terror group, which comprises mainly of foreigners. There's this issue of Sheikh Gumi always in the know of these activities and him having a separate view with that of the vice president. How do you see this panning out? And the fact that also the DSS knew about this group before now, but just told them to live peacefully or they get attacked. How worried are you?
It is worrisome that over the years, a lot of non-state actors have been able to undermine the security architecture of our country. The reality is that we are at war, whether we choose to admit it or not. A lot of security experts have been shouting about this on the media. Do we have to wait till when the whole country is run down at once before we know we are at war? You know, our borders are porous. You see a lot of bandits.
The network glitch, we hope we'll be able to re-establish contact with Barrister Kester Sunu, so that we can get his take on this last talking point, looking at the issue of the new emergence of the terrorist group. All right, let's go for a quick break. When we return from this break, we'll be wrapping up the program as we look at issues on the desk. All right, welcome back from the break. Let's see if we can re-establish contact with Barrister Kester as we wrap it up. Barrister Kester, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Sorry,
okay.
Breaking transmission.
You've got 1 minute to wrap it up. Sheikh Gumi says Nigeria should be careful of using kinetic force in tackling the new terror group. Do you think that advice is coming from a good place?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Sheikh Gumi is a non-state actor. He's not a security operative to the best of my knowledge. His motive is suspect. I really don't know the angle from which he's talking from, because the little information I can glean about him from the media is that there's a controversy as to his true loyalties. You know, this is someone who has notoriously canvassed or advanced arguments in favor of terrorists, in the past. So someone like that, I would take a lot of what he's saying with a pinch of salt, without also not limiting the importance of his intelligence, because he's someone who seems to be operating very closely with a lot of terrorist elements in our country. So I would also expect that security apparatus would actually, interview the intelligence, would actually analyze the intelligence that this man has But as regards to his opinions as to how we should feel about these people, that for me is suspect. So I'm ambivalent to the strategies he may want to put in place. But he has intelligence. For me, the security operatives should ask him where does his loyalties lie and who is he protecting? Who does he work for? How come he's so close to these people? What are his intentions? So that is what I think we should be able to find out from Sheikh Gumi.
Thank you, Barrister Kester Elebesunu. Always a pleasure having you join us on the desk, and my regards to the entire family and to the judiciary. We are still counting on the judiciary to clear itself or purge itself of the many controversial rulings. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
All right, that's how we call it a wrap on today's edition of the program, The Desk on Global Television. My name is Anthony Momodu saying thank you for being part of the weekend edition. Let's do this again next week.